In the gentle morning light of ancient Shangan, merchants would gather in quiet contemplation, preparing for journeys that would stretch across months and thousands of kilometers. The Silk Road was not merely a path through the desert. It was an intricate system of logistics, planning, and human ingenuity that connected East and West for over a millennium. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the city, watching as caravans formed with methodical precision. These were not haphazard groups of travelers, but carefully orchestrated expeditions, typically numbering between 100 and 500 camels. Each animal had been selected with the expertise of generations, each load calculated and balanced with mathematical precision. The formation of a caravan began weeks before departure. Caravan masters, men whose knowledge had been passed down through families for centuries, would examine every aspect of the upcoming journey. They understood that success depended not on speed, but on the steady, measured pace of 25 to 30 kilometers per day. A rhythm that preserved the strength of their animals and protected the precious cargo they carried. Picture the quiet efficiency as each Bactrian camel received its burden. These remarkable creatures, with their thick winter coats and patient demeanor, could carry between 150 and 200 kilograms of goods. But weight was only part of the equation. The cargo had to be distributed with careful attention to balance, using standardized wooden frames that prevented shifting during the long days of travel. Now let us turn to the careful science of water management, perhaps the most crucial aspect of desert travel. Experienced caravan masters possessed an almost mystical understanding of water consumption, calculating exact needs based on the number of animals, the season, and the known locations of wells and oases along their route. Large goatskin bags, each capable of holding 50 liters, were distributed throughout the caravan with mathematical precision. The selection of water containers was itself an art form. These goatskin bags, carefully prepared and waterproofed, could withstand the harsh conditions of desert travel while keeping their precious contents cool. Caravan leaders knew exactly how much water each animal would need per day, factoring in temperature, humidity, and the difficulty of the terrain ahead. Meanwhile, the choice of pack animals reflected centuries of accumulated wisdom. Bactrian camels, with their two distinctive humps, were preferred for the northern routes through the Gobi Desert and Central Asian steppes. These animals had evolved for precisely these conditions, their thick coats protecting them from bitter winter winds, their broad feet distributing weight evenly across sand and stone. The care of these animals was treated with almost religious devotion. Caravan masters understood that the health of their animals was directly linked to the success of their mission. Regular rest periods were built into every day's journey, with time allocated for grazing when vegetation was available, and careful attention paid to the condition of hooves and harnesses. As we move deeper into the logistics of these ancient expeditions, consider the remarkable standardization that emerged across the Silk Road network. Goods were packed in containers designed for specific purposes: leather sacks for spices and small precious items, wooden chests for silk and fine fabrics, and woven baskets for everyday commodities. Each container bore the seal or mark of its owner, creating a system of identification that could be recognized from China to Constantinople. The development of these standardized containers reflected practical experience gained over generations. The dimensions were carefully calculated to fit properly on camelback. The materials chosen for their durability and protection of contents, and the closures designed to prevent theft, while allowing for inspection at various checkpoints along the route. Now imagine the network of rest stations that dotted these ancient highways like pearls on a string. Caravanserai were positioned with remarkable precision, spaced exactly 30 to 40 kilometers apart. The perfect distance for a day's comfortable travel for a loaded caravan. These weren't arbitrary locations, but carefully chosen sites that took advantage of natural water sources, defensible positions, and proximity to local markets. Within these caravanserai, a different kind of organization took hold. Spaces were allocated for animals and humans, with separate areas for different types of cargo. The largest caravanserai could accommodate hundreds of travelers and their animals simultaneously. Yet they operated with quiet efficiency that reflected centuries of refinement. The architecture of these rest stations tells its own story of practical innovation. High walls provided protection from desert winds and potential bandits, while the central courtyard design allowed for easy supervision of goods and animals. Water storage was always a central feature, with cisterns and wells maintained by the station keepers as part of an understanding that transcended political boundaries. Let us pause to consider the communication systems that held these far-flung caravans together. During sandstorms or periods of low visibility, when a caravan might stretch for several kilometers, bronze bells and wooden clappers provided audible signals that could carry across considerable distances. Different patterns of sounds conveyed specific messages. Signals to stop, to change direction, or to close ranks during dangerous passages. These sound systems reflected an understanding of desert acoustics and animal behavior. The tones were chosen to be distinct from natural sounds, yet not so jarring as to frighten the animals. Caravan leaders positioned themselves strategically throughout the column, ensuring that signals could be relayed from front to back, even in the most challenging conditions. Picture now the careful timing that governed these expeditions. Most eastbound caravans departed in early spring, a timing calculated around monsoon patterns and seasonal weather conditions. This scheduling allowed them to cross the worst desert sections during cooler months, while arriving at mountain passes before winter snows made them impassable. The seasonal rhythm of the Silk Road was as precise as any modern shipping schedule. Caravan masters consulted what they called itineraria, detailed route books that recorded not just distances and directions, but seasonal variations in weather, water availability, and local political conditions. These manuscripts were treasured possessions, representing generations of accumulated knowledge. These route books contained information that went far beyond simple geography. They noted which mountain passes were likely to be clear at what times of year, which desert crossings were safest during specific months, and even which local rulers were most amenable to trade during particular seasons. Such knowledge could mean the difference between profit and disaster, between a successful journey and one that ended in the desert sands. As we explore the role of caravan leaders, we discover individuals whose expertise encompassed navigation, animal husbandry, diplomacy, and commerce. These men, and they were predominantly men in this ancient world, inherited their positions through family lines or earned them through years of apprenticeship under experienced masters. The knowledge required was vast and varied. A successful caravan leader needed to read the stars for navigation, understand the subtle signs of weather changes, recognize the symptoms of animal illness, and negotiate with local officials and bandits alike. They carried in their minds detailed maps of water sources, safe camping spots, and alternative routes for every major trade corridor. Consider the quiet confidence required for such responsibility. These leaders made decisions that affected not just their own fortunes, but the livelihoods of dozens of merchants and the safety of hundreds of animals. Their judgment calls about when to rest, which route to take, and how to respond to changing conditions rippled through the entire expedition. Now let us examine the cargo distribution systems that made such complex expeditions possible. Goods were not randomly loaded, but distributed according to careful calculations that took into account weight, value, fragility, and accessibility. The most precious items traveled near the front of the caravan, where they could be closely supervised, while bulk goods were positioned in the middle, where they were most protected. The arrangement of cargo also reflected practical considerations about loading and unloading, items that might need to be accessed quickly. Medicine, repair materials, or gifts for local officials were packed in easily reached containers. Meanwhile, goods destined for distant markets could be packed more securely, prioritizing protection over accessibility. Every aspect of cargo handling had been refined through experience. The positioning of loads on individual animals took into account the camel's gait and balance, ensuring that weight would not shift dangerously during travel. Padding and cushioning materials were strategically placed to prevent damage from constant movement and temperature fluctuations. Imagine yourself walking alongside one of these ancient caravans, hearing the gentle chiming of bronze bells, the soft shuffle of camel feet on sand, and the quiet conversations of merchants discussing the markets that awaited them. There was a meditative quality to these journeys, a rhythm of days that connected travelers with the vast landscapes they traversed. The pace of caravan travel imposed a different relationship with time and distance than our modern world knows. Progress was measured not in hours, but in days and weeks. Success came not from speed, but from consistency, careful planning, and the accumulated wisdom of generations of desert travelers. As we reflect on these remarkable achievements of ancient logistics, we begin to appreciate the quiet ingenuity that made the Silk Road possible. This was not a single road, but a network of routes supported by sophisticated systems of organization, communication, and mutual cooperation that spanned continents and cultures. The legacy of these ancient caravan systems extends far beyond their historical period. The principles of careful planning, systematic organization, and adaptive problem-solving that characterized Silk Road logistics continue to influence how we think about transportation and trade networks today. In our modern world of instant communication and rapid transport, there is something deeply peaceful about imagining these ancient caravans making their steady way across vast landscapes, connected to the rhythm of the earth and seasons, carrying not just goods, but knowledge, culture, and human understanding across the known world. The quiet ingenuity of their methods reminds us that true innovation often comes not from rushing forward, but from patient observation, careful planning, and respect for the challenges that nature and distance present to human endeavors.